12 years is the amount of time I had allocated to 12 years of late nights for that company. Weekends and early mornings lost to strategy sessions and product due dates. Upon seeing the subject line, please, organizational restructuring, verify that my heart didn't skip a beat when we met. Beat, it decelerated sufficiently for me to recognize that something wasn't correct. The time of the meeting was set for 8 a.m., precisely a Wednesday, only 3 days prior to the company's widely reported debut Party 1 I had been using for the past 9 months, planning everything, even the slightest I entered the conference room in detail. The atmosphere was dense just in time, with Kevin from HR pretended to be seated on the left. Fake compassion is almost oozing from Andrew sat across from him. His Porez Harper, the recently hired CEO, had taken more than 6 weeks ago. With no prior history of the business, has little regard for its employees. Simply crisp fits the phrases on LinkedIn and a strategy to maximize performance. Thanks for coming, Isabel. Andrew folded his hands and murmured, "In." The table as though he were going to present it to me. I grinned, not a pink slip, but a promotion. Courteously and naturally, we'll sit down. Kevin started in queue and got right to the point. With our updated structural alignment, you function as the brand strategy director is being removed from the executive team in phases recognizes the years of hard work you have put in. But the choice is, Andrew didn't blink in the end. He simply added, you have contributed significantly. We're developing a slimmer Isabel, more supple, valuable slimmer phased out of the team. Looked over Kevin's termination documents. 12 years distilled slipped over the table. Into a severance of 3 printed pages that hardly paid attention to my time or value, I could have shed a tear or two. I demanded an explanation and raised my voice. But I didn't, as I was aware of this beforehand. Was just 3 weeks prior, I had entered the office late one evening after I was forgetting my laptop when I noticed Andrew had an open email on his screen. Hurriedly left, the subject line said Isabel was removed off the launch list. Substitute verified. It took me just a few seconds. It was dated a full month in order to read it thoroughly, prior to the announcement of any restructuring, so I started to carefully and silently get ready. I understand, I responded strategically now. These decisions are never, I said calmly, simple. They appeared nearly dissatisfied by my calm, as though they were hoping for a tirade to ease their workload. Rather, I thanked them and signed the documents for their time and stood to, oh, one more thing. Kevin mentioned as per policy, Friday will be your last day. Will not have to go to the launch party. I nearly laughed, but I won't have to go. Had created the launch from the ground up. Created each invitation and selected the attendees. List, and I even made the venue reservation myself. And 3 days before to now, they were removing my invitation to my own event. Nodded. Comprehended, but I didn't intend to. I'm missing it at my flat. I unlocked my laptop at night and had a peek at the document I had been working on for a long time. Upon seeing the email, it wasn't merely a letter of resignation or a formal complaint. It was a chronological timeline, arranged list of all the products for the campaign and brand benchmark that I had overseen or constructed each entry from the ground up, contained backups of the names, proof files, and emails, and underneath that, a copyright document certificate. Due to the fact that 9 months ago, when the theme for the launch was still a concept on I had made a big proposition on the whiteboard. A new tagline for the branding language and graphic representation of the product they adored until Andrew intervened and halted asking me to gatherings for creative work. What they were unaware that I had submitted the complete launch identities, copyright with my name as the original maker in my spare time, utilizing my own legal clean tools, traceable, so I saved it as a PDF. Named Isabel's Launch Gift PDF, and included it in a planned email the delivery time for recipient Andrew Harper, 9:30 at night. Exactly 20 minutes after his, I grinned as I made a toast at the launch party. As I reach my deadline, I let them have their applause, their champagne, empty words as I wasn't merely as I was leaving. I wanted to make sure by Thursday morning they had recalled me. There was a launch party going on in the office. Centerpieces delivered by energetic florists, gift packages in hand, interns running about, and marketing executives examining press kits for the anticipated 200-plus guests to attend TechVision's upcoming rebranding go live. And this week's buzzword was transformative. Nobody gave me a second glance. The beauty of being invisible was that, upon their determination that you're already gone, but I could still access the project management communication system, all of the dashboards. They hadn't canceled something, and Andrew he was too busy to bother talking to me again. Occupied with business photography magazines with folks half my age on either side, and every time I walked, it was twice as loud. Beyond the transparent meeting rooms where they gathered, and I noticed my branding and labor. My entire concept was plastered in my copy, like it had been, across the screens summoned from above. But I wasn't no longer angry. I was patient. This Thursday afternoon, I got an email from the coordinator of the event verifying the final media rundown and guest list had not yet been taken off the CC list. As I carelessly scrolled through, I saw the names of numerous business executives, investors, and influencers who recalled me as the voice behind the most effective campaigns from TechVision individuals who would undoubtedly be familiar with my distinctive artistic approach when they observed. It revealed, but more significantly, I observed the name of Bain's founder, Lucas Bain, and the biggest investment company, Ford, connected to the future of TechVision financing. Lucas was a sincere individual with lack of tolerance for legal drama. Or I had encountered intellectual property scandals. Him once at 2 industry conventions. He had taken me aside years prior to compliment a marketing that I had created. "You possess the mentality that makes people listen," he replied, and now I'd certain that he had every justification for doing so. I looked over the launch schedule that evening. At 9:10, Andrew was scheduled to make his toast. PM and the introduction of the new advertising on a huge screen that 9:30 p.m., draped around the room, was the moment. Everything would be different. Document I created as Isabel's launch present. The PDF was not merely a list. It was a document which described the evolution of Traced, TechVision's new visual identity, attend gatherings that took place prior to my dismissal, supported by drafts, with timestamps and Slack exchanges in which I suggested the copyright was one of the main concepts. Registration was submitted 4 days prior to Andrew's even joined the business. It also cited internal communications in which Andrew disregarded my creative role. We can afford to let go of its best features. Wasn't sent to him only on time. Email was scheduled to arrive at the same time. Lucas to the board of directors of TechVision Bain, 3 elite tech reporters, and Samantha Cho, my personal attorney, who had wrote a letter of cease and desist. I also had the file attached. Planned the launch of a LinkedIn post at 9:35 p.m., a summary of my 12 years at TechVision and my choice to safeguard my work after getting fired without being resentful, not trivial, but factual, kind, and supported by evidence that arrived Friday morning. I appropriately attired in black satin blouse and fitted suit that are subtle, but my access badge was still functional, crisp. As I passed through, nobody asked me any questions. The entrance to the luxurious Midtown, I blended in at the party held at the hotel. Simply another executive among the champagne glasses of the CEOs clinked. Waiters carried truffles as they floated by. Visitors posed against branded canopies. Backdrops I created. They were unreal. My hands didn't race, and neither did my heart shake. I wasn't anxious because I was prepared at precisely 9:09 p.m. Andrew ascended the stage with a man's assurance that he had constructed his empire out of his face was warmed by scratch lighting as he lifted his glass. He said, "Everything you see here. Booming is a result of our amazing team. Every restless night, every invention, each and every ounce of creativity. with the exception of the deceased weight we released as the crowd passed. Some looked at me as they giggled awkwardly. Others lifted their eyeglasses with fake grins. I got up and walked with composure to the platform and gave him a slender white envelope. He stumbled, "What's this?" I leaned in, just loud enough to be heard by close-by microphones as a surprise launch present. After that, I turned and left the ballroom, and left them with the ticking clock. The notifications started at 9:30 p.m. Phones began and emails were delivered. One journalist was buzzing and tweeted an image of the copyright certificate. Lucas Bain was already there at 9:32 p.m. 10 minutes later, commotion ensued as he dialed his phone. By the time I arrived at the outside the hotel on the sidewalk, I could already sense the change in the atmosphere within. The waiters were still listening to the music, still going strong, but the atmosphere had turned as soon as my email arrived. Fell silently through the launch. Missile with a kind and lawful tone, but catastrophic in effect. What was once a party was now unfolding in real time, but I choose not to look. I slid into a black automobile instead. Waiting for the driver across the street, Samantha sent it, and my lawyer nodded. My phone lit up softly as I withdrew it. At 10:02 p.m., we crossed Park Avenue. "Everything is moving, Samantha, and the dread is an angry board has already called an emergency." I gazed out at the lovely timing of the session. The window while the surrounding metropolis radiated. My mind straying back to the starting with the days before TechVision even referred to it as Scruffy. Startup, of which I was among the first 10 staff members we had worked with in a co-working space, with a burnt smell I recalled cheap ambition and coffee. Daniel Shaw, our founder, was the reason I remained for so long. Had faith in those he listened to and created, yes. Where credit was due, it was given. Earned. He died 4 years ago. And after that, Andrew Harper was altered by the firm arrived wearing flawless suits and gleaming teeth. And a series of buzzword-filled phrases detox board believed he was I was only a reminder of the past, not the future. They didn't think the past would fight. "What did you do, Miguel, at 10:11 p.m.? Andrew just bounded off the stage, and the PR crew his investors are demanding in a frenzy." Miguel had been one of my allies to answer inside the marketing group. Quite astute and faithful, even if I hadn't told him everything, but I had informed him that a significant event was imminent. 10:14 p.m., your post on LinkedIn has been 987 comments and 3,258 replies in 44. I opened it for a few minutes and read some of the top answers, which is why we record "well done" on everything. Isabel's 12 years of genius sacked. This is what you deserved. The kind of silent power that every one of us should. It seemed unreal to strive for the validation. After being instructed to tone it for years down and let the group take center stage. Becoming recognized at last for reasons other than politics. Because of the effort I had done, I avoided. The consequences intensified back at the hotel. Samantha sent me a video clip from inside the boardroom. One of the interactions, the assistants' phones were left behind. Accidentally noting on the table although the audio was shaky, the voices were, "No one from the clear board verified." Prior to tonight's court action, Branding Ownership Council, we were informed that every asset was created internally. Lucas Bain, you're introducing a product that uses copyrighted, you anticipate things that you don't even possess. Us, to continue providing funding for this, we can manage this mess. Andrew refuses to battle, followed by Samantha's voice. Cold, razor-sharp blades slicing into the space similar to a Samantha scalpel recorded, "In fact, what happens if you don't take down your branding, supplies and stop the rollout by Monday? Submit an injunction." TechVision's legal team had, by 11 p.m., contacted Samantha directly. They wanted to talk about possibilities, but it was too. The launch was delayed for damage control. Previously became a case study at 7:45 a.m. on Friday. Corporate arrogance launch party headlines were everywhere. CEO chastised for IP goes off script, IT insider scandal and branding issue at files of the former director of Tech Vision Daily Tech's copyright claim. Days prior to debut, the Digest woman was dismissed. Stops the entire VoxWire rollout. Tech Visions. Shares fell 6% before to the... In the meanwhile, the market even formally opened. Recruiters were crowding my inbox. Journalists, startups, and former co-workers I sent a message after not speaking for years. Prominently displayed a private message from Daniel Clare, Shaw's widow, subject. He would be, I sat on the side of my bed, proud of you. Cradling my phone, as if it were 100 pounds, that brief statement made me cry. Had remained in place throughout the meeting, the dismissal or even the departure due to beneath all of the planning and strategy, the public positions and legal safeguards. There was more to this than this. This was retaliation. Justice by Tech. Vision on Monday morning was completely in control of the launch's damage. Campaign that was supposed to rule the tech headlines were frozen for the entire week. Web page had subtly switched back to the prior iteration of the updated tagline. Image, promotional materials, and identity were cleaned and sanitized. Social media accounts offered ambiguous messages regarding unforeseen technological difficulties. As their public relations team rushed to react to the increasing flood of media questions at 9:12 a.m., a new person sent me an email. Crisis Board member Derek Lomax. Respectfully, Manager Dear Miss Turner, we call a meeting to discuss your options for resolution, including possible licensing, possible resolution of the contentious. Please inform us about intellectual property. Regarding your availability this week, Derek Lomax. Acting Vice President, I sent the strategy Tech Vision. Samantha responded to the email within, let them sweat for a few minutes, and we'll reply. You have more urgent matters to attend to tomorrow. Are you ready for today? I was at 10 a.m., entered the Midtown headquarters of an emerging AI company. Called Viotech had been subtly attracting attention in our industry, had contacted them a week prior, not only due of the controversy, but since they were able to identify the voice behind the most famous piece of tech vision, that I was offered a position of complete creative leadership. Vice President of Brand Strategy and Innovation, Equity, Complete Independence. And I could create a team from the ground up, but the Aisha Rahman, their CEO, once had a genuine attraction. Been fired from a Fortune 500 company for being overly audacious, she realized that our conference started without simply shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. Simple expression from, you are really intelligent, Aisha. Let's make sure. You can continue to be, for the first time in years, I'm brilliant. Felt as though I wasn't arguing for my value. After lunch, Samantha was defining it. At last, I went over the phrases we would suggest Tech Vision, who had 2-1 approach is to stop using the launch altogether. Materials are released to the public right away. Retractions and damages. 2 grant retroactive licenses for the materials, and proceeding under my control for a substantial amount, and with public recognition of my involvement in the second. The choice was generous in every way. Thought about, but we both knew Andrew. The words would choke Harper's ego. The general. Public recognition, which is precisely the reason we included it by Tuesday a.m. The board of Tech Vision had convened for another emergency meeting inside a portion of the meeting's source-leaked conversation with Tech Insider regarding their piece Noon's Post was incriminating, per sources. According to Andrew, CEO Harper did not thoroughly investigate ownership of the business's fresh branding materials, resulting in a copyright issue in public only a few hours following the product's release. Concerns have been raised by shareholders regarding Harper's response to the circumstance and the possible legal expenses currently confronting the business. I wasn't specifically mentioned in the piece. However, it didn't have to happen to everyone just yet. Knowing that Miguel Andrew had recently received removed from the strategy call board today is angry. Rumor has it that he's being redirected 10:55 a.m. LinkedIn direct message from Tell me when you're ready, Lucas Bain. I believe you have earned more than a new title, but I haven't responded yet. Completed observing everything by TechVision published and public declaration that at last acknowledges mistakes in the creation and giving credit for artistic materials pertaining to the most recent product introduction of my, this time, a name, was formally mentioned. Buried at the bottom was a phrase that said, "We are presently seeking a solution together with Miss Isabel Turner's legal group." It wasn't an expression of regret, but it was a starting. Later that day, Aisha and I completed my agreement with Viotech. When the Human Resources, the director, requested that I post an immediate official recruiting announcement, I grinned and stated, "Let's hold off until Friday." Since Friday was precisely 1 week has passed since the launch celebration, when Andrew held up a glass and yelled I had one more, and I dead waited. Surprise in shop. Friday morning was chilly and bright, and promising in precisely 1 week, because I had been in front of a room full of business leaders and gave Andrew Harper a gift that he didn't anticipate when I got to Viotech corporate office in my new position as Vice President of Brand Strategy, and the office was already innovative, thriving alongside energy designers, whiteboarding product ideas for marketers, enhancing engineers' campaign timelines. Talking about deployment plans was a stark contrast to the top-down culture of TechVision delays in approvals and down orders. People moved here with a purpose. Respectfully, I placed my suitcase in my new office that's bigger than my last one, yet smaller, more about space and less about prestige, too. I immediately open my laptop and think. Schedule our well-created, the LinkedIn announcement post went live. And on business media sites, Isabel Turner joins Viotech as Vice President of Brand Strategy and Inventiveness. The post was well written, but personally, it emphasized my 12-year track record. TechVision's record gave me credit for spearheading their most prosperous campaigns and declared the start of a new transparency is the foundation of Chapter 1. Cooperation and innovative work. The last sentence said, because innovation merits not only acknowledgement, but protection. In less than half an hour, it was trending with dozens of likes and hundreds of encouraging remarks from former co-workers, fellow artists, and even some old adversaries who were compelled to tip Samantha's headgear at 9:34 a.m. The General Counsel has just phoned, prepared to agree to the terms of the license, including Andrew's public attribution, formally resigned this morning. I learnt that Richard Donovan is the interim CEO, sitting back in my chair and allowing that it had taken 7 days to settle. Break down 12 years of being 7 days to reclaim was underestimated. Responsibility for my work for 7 days in the business that previously referred to me as interchangeable, to formally acknowledge that they were unable to proceed without the things I'd produced by tech media in the middle of the day. The Viotech was taken up by outlets. Announcement that was especially scathing. I laughed at the Tech Scoop headline. From dead weight to director allowed, Isabel Turner's power play during launch week, Miguel replied after I sent him the link. Miguel formally turned within a few seconds. I'm resigning today, beginning with Virosh. You were correct on Monday. Never anticipated it. He wasn't just 2 additional former teammates from that week. TechVision had contacted inquiring about Viotech's job vacancies. It did, and I had already begun the process of integrating them into an endeavor I had been envisioning long time, but never had the assistance in pursuing the individuals who has been disregarded, paid too little, and neglected, were now constructing something. At 12:15 p.m., fresh with me, not under me, an official email was sent by TechVision's Richard Donovan, the acting CEO, was elegant, professional, and most importantly, be considerate, Miss Turner. I would want to personally, we appreciate you interacting with us during this difficult time on behalf of the board. I'm sorry for how your contributions were previously handled. Your licensing conditions have been accepted by us, and we'll make a public statement acknowledging. Additionally, this afternoon we've started internal evaluations to stop this from occurring once more. I hope this resolution provides closure and that your upcoming the chapter is full with acknowledgement. You've always been deserving of the draft of TechVision's email public declaration that they were recognizing me, specifically indicating that the original's creative direction launch, which I had created before the corporation expressed regret for my termination, not appreciating my labor, and was now obtaining a branding license through my ownership. It fulfilled all of my requests. More so than because I desired praise, since I desired the truth at 300. The announcement became public for investors at PM responded. Well, Stability went back to their inventory, but the web has already selected its hero, and the man wasn't who once pledged to let go of the deceased weight that night. Aisha came to my office with a bottle of alcohol and 2 glasses. Casino to justice served, she remarked. I lifted my glass as I was pouring, and to resuming more forcefully as the sun sank behind our glasses and the skyline clinking, I realized something deep within my bones. This victory wasn't merely a change in the way that women in leadership roles are observed, in the way that intellectual labor is regarded, and how quiet can occasionally be the loudest reaction of all. But I'm still wasn't finished, as a win is only a what you do next is what makes the difference. It made a difference. A year later, I stood backstage at the Women in Technology National Leadership Summit, modifying the "I have a microphone attached to my collar." The hall reverberated with the host's voice as she gave me an introduction. Welcome to our keynote. Speaker and innovator in the industry, brand creator and spokesperson for Isabel's invention with integrity. The cheers were warm and familiar, Turner. I deserved it when I entered the light. The curtain and gazed out over the ocean. Of faces of business owners, executives, and entrepreneurs, I recognized a few of the engineering kids. Many of them knew me, but I didn't know others. Understood. My story, which had developed into a warning story for business boardrooms, as well as a catchphrase in break rooms. Today, a year ago, I started packing a not with regrets, but with a cardboard box memories that are not resentful, but rather, I guided them through the facts with clarity. Of what transpired, not the news reports. The sanitized business claims, that the reality of how quickly innovation is adopted taken for granted, that loyalty is only appreciated manner people like, and when it's convenient. Like many of them, I am instructed to sit, silently as others claim the credit. Was referred to as dead weight, and I stated not because I was at a loss for words, but since I was aware that what I was doing would speak louder than I could ever hope to with my rage. There was silence. In the room. This isn't simply a brilliant play or a copyright narrative. It's all about owning your brand at a launch party. Work for your value, and then speak out. Numerous women, some just barely out of some college students, have decades of experience. Waiting to talk to me, one murmured, "I began recording everything after perusing your story. I was unaware of my rights." "My company just gave me," another remarked, "credit for a series of products I developed following. I reminded them of your predicament." Played, they were not fangirling, they said. Waking, and that was more important than anything the next week, I went back to Virok as part of our quarterly plan Miguel's session with 3 other former co-workers from TechVision. Now sat around with me at the table. We were completing a new campaign that is quite daring, cooperative, and completely unique. No one was trying to shine brighter than the others, but one was acting as though they had all the replies that we developed jointly, in the manner that it was always intended that afternoon, that I got a shiny envelope in the front. Desk with only my name and no return address written in a tidy, purposeful script. It contained a brief handwritten note, "Congrats on your accomplishment. The board now talks respectfully of you. They ought to have done so right away. You were correct when you resigned. It was never simply Richard Donovan, the business's temporary. The CEO who had taken over Andrew is a man who is different from his predecessor, had put his humility before his ego, and he was resigning since TechVision had stabilized under the new management. Their recuperation has been gradual but methodical. The branding package was licensed by them. I was officially acknowledged by each investor. Document, and most recently, they had asked me to give a speech at their business. I declined to retreat, not out of animosity, but since I had later moved on at last. Aisha called me into her that month. Viotech office. She gave me one while grinning. The board has authorized the piece of paper. Your promotion is effective right now. You are now in charge of innovation and brand. Officer, that is precisely what you deserved, blinked. Standing, you don't just construct, she said. Isabel, you cultivate faith in individuals with a purpose in it's possible that I didn't cheer or cry. Simply took a breath. Since for the first time, I wasn't trying to prove anything in my job. The following day, I was living in my value. A fresh license plate showed up outside I touched the office door with my fingers. Isabel Turner's metal letters CBIO was fired after 12 years. Marginalized, undervalued, and my name was now just where it should have been, not in the not behind the scenes, but on the document on the record's door where nobody could see it, yet everyone could transport it to a location that would